All right, then I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to make a few additions. We're going to set the tax due date under new business. We're going to add health insurance for a road crew member under the road foreman's report, and also discuss middle road traffic. A letter we received regarding Middle Road. And with that, we have the minutes of our previous meeting of July 1st.
I'll move that we approve the select board meeting minutes from July 1st.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, we have bills for payment. We have warrant 2, the payroll 2P, and recreation board number 1.
I'll move that we approve warrants 2, 2P, and recreation board number 1.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? The warrant 2 was for a total of $13,417.93. That was for health insurance, fuel, our monthly rescue payment, payroll transfers, and our quarterly payment to the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District. So, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have some visitors. Does anyone have anything that's not already on the agenda that they'd like to bring up?
I'd like to just mention to Maria that Paul Normando has joined.
Thank you.
And
Paul.
Jean Newell.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, with the board's permission, I'd like to move up our reappraisal this update under new business, since we have some people here specifically for that question. If that meets everyone's okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and we have some of the listers. Do you want to make the introductions, Jean, or? You have to do it by holding up a sign, I guess.
You gotta unmute yourself, Jean.
Okay, maybe I'll do the introductions while Jean gets unmuted. We have Ed Clodfelter from the company that we've contracted with to do the reappraisal. And I think Jean is with us now.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, you want to take it from there, Jean?
We never know. Well, is Michael and Steve here also?
Steve Mindell is also with us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, actually, I think that Ed Clodfelter should do his presentation, since we have invited him to share what he has to say for the listers and for the select board.
Okay.
So
Right.
that we'll be holding him up.
Great, so I think he's ready to go. So Ed, giving you the stage here.
So you should see my screen now. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. That's
Okay.
great.
So I know that there were some questions about where we're at and where we're going and how we're going to do things. And it's something that's come up repeatedly over the past few years, because the world has just changed. Before COVID-19 even came in, the world changed, and in terms of how we do our work. So I got to thinking about it a little bit, and I started just pulling some data together with some towns that we had just finished up. We just finished 10 reappraisals this year, and so we have a lot of practical experience in terms of where we're at, and we're just starting to see some of the impacts of COVID and how we're having to deal with stuff. And Nate's here, and I see as well. Maybe you can chime in at some time. But so I just put this together. to, kind of give us some information and kind of guide our discussion about things. And I'll certainly answer questions as you go along, or I can do them at the end. Whatever you want to do is fine. But so I'll just start off and go from there, if you don't mind. So really the questions are the need for inspections, and specific interior inspections. And, obviously the first part of that is that, I've always tell my staff when we're talking about how to go about doing a project, that it really is a privilege to go into somebody's house. And we have to look at it from that perspective, because they don't have to let anybody in. They don't. It's better. I think it's better for them. I know it's better for us if they do. And we can have a conversation about what's there and make them feel more comfortable and more at ease. But there's no requirement that they have to let somebody go through their property. It's not a law. So therefore, the appraisers that go and up and knock on the door, then they don't really have control over who's going to allow them to go in and go through their property. Again, but if they do get that opportunity, it needs to be respectful and understand that it really is a privilege to go through somebody's house. Generally, what we do is we send postcards out in advance of going out, so people know that we're coming. I don't like to blindside people. It's better if they kind of know somebody's coming around. The cards got sent out a little bit too early from my perspective, but we've been putting a placard, as you know, at the front of the road area that we're working in, and then going up through there. And I guess it's been working. When Jeremiah was starting that, he said it was working okay, and Nate can chime in about that as well to see how that's working. But we may actually adopt that strategy for other towns we're doing. Just get something and put it in the front of the road that we're working off. I think it's a really good idea. So we may do that. And I think that there's been some information on the town's website about where people are going as well. So we're trying to make people aware that we're out there. Then we go up and we do an outside inspection. If nobody's there, we do an exterior inspection. We remeasure. We take a look at the lay of the land. We take new pictures. And then we do everything on a tablet. So we download the data to our tablets and then put information on our tablet right then and there. And it's sort of done. And then if there's nobody around, we have a chance to talk to anybody. We do leave them a card that we were there. And on there, and I'll talk about this later on, it's called an OPDV card, Online Property Data Verification, which is a code that we give them to go look at their data online. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So I've been doing this for 38 years. And I can tell you that in the last 30 years in particular, in the last 10 in particular, it really has changed. It used to be that you go up, you work in a town, people knew about that, and the locals were there and they knew you, or you knew what was going on, and it really was not a big problem getting in through properties. Even back in those days, if you got 75 to 85%, you were doing extremely well to get inside places. It depends on the type of town that's there. But I will tell you, in the last 10 years, it's really changed. And I don't really know quite why, I guess in theories. And one, I think there have been a lot of people that have moved here from parts of the country that they are not used to having interior inspections done. And I will tell you that it's pretty much a New England phenomena. I've worked places around the country, and a lot of counties out west, Midwest, southern part of the country, they don't do interior inspections. They just don't. They do everything from the outside. They probably have much better planning and zoning processes that if you want to, change a light bulb, you almost have to get a permit to do it. So from that perspective, they kind of have things covered a little different from what we do. Hope we don't get to that point in Vermont, but you never know. But I think they are unaccustomed to that, and we frequently get asked, I do, well, why do you need to come inside? And that just opens up the discussion and to make them feel comfortable. And I said, well, nothing's changed. And I said, well, I understand nothing's changed, but I really haven't seen the property, and it just give me a chance to look and see if what we have is current with what you have. So with the way to have that conversation. We have a lot more working households now than we used to. So everybody's working, everybody's away, which I think has a big impact on that. Then, you know, people don't want to be bothered when they get home from work. They don't want to be bothered on the weekends. And so they just sometimes they have a card, they have a number to call, come back for an appointment, and some do, most don't, I will tell you. So again, that's about what you can do. I think there's this overriding concern about taxes. People feel that, you know, if I let you come in my house, you're going to raise my assessment, you're going to raise my taxes. And again, that's, if we can have that conversation with them, we can ease that fear a little bit. What I know is that the more people that we talk to, the better off everybody is. Again, it's just a comfort level. And then there are some properties that just are privacy issues. I could think of some places I've been to in some towns. People, they just don't want you to see the paintings on the wall. They don't want you to see the way their house is set up and things along those lines. So those are just some of the things my theories in terms of what's going on with that. So I started looking at some numbers with things. You know, I will tell you that in the last probably 5 years or so, and pre-COVID, we're probably looking at 50 to 75% inspections. And again, it depends on the makeup of the town. For example, right now we're doing Danville. So we got people going into Joe's Pond. Everybody's there. So there's not a problem seeing people that they don't want anybody to go in. The people that are there don't, but people are there. You can go to a more working class town, a little bit like Chester coming up. We'll talk about Chester. Everybody's working, nobody's really around. You don't get as good a success in terms of doing interior inspections there. So it does depend on the town.
So Ed, can I interrupt for a sec?
Sure.
So when you say typical percentages, the Northfield example, 60%, are you saying 60% of people don't let people in their houses, or what is the 60%?
Well, this is a special one I'm going to bring up because we got into 60% of the places there. But
you got into 60% of the places. Okay, I just didn't know what the percentage was for.
Thanks for asking. So what's unusual about that is that, and this is 5 years ago now, is that they had a lister there that this was his mission, to get a reappraisal done in the town of Northfield. And he was going to make sure it was done right. So he was, you know, he worked really hard and followed us around. And he would, if you walked down the street and we hadn't gone to your place, he had you make an appointment. He would call you up. He would run you into you in the grocery store. To the point, and I must say this, and bless Art, that's his name was Art, he harassed people and he made some people upset. So my point is that even with his harassment and making phone calls and stopping people in the street, we still only got 60% interior inspections. Northfield's a working class town. We had plenty of people there, plenty of opportunities for staff to go do appointments. We did a lot of appointments. It's a pretty good sized town, Northfield is. But that's as good as we could do. And even with him really, really pushing to get him done. So he worked hard at it. He really did. We just finished up Chester, and I had Nate run some stuff through. We did 42% interior inspections there. It's a town that I had done years ago, so we knew the town pretty well. And we talked to a lot of people. And Wanda had been a lister there for a long time, and so she knows people as well. So it was, you know, if Al were here, he would tell you that right now he's getting a lot of good information, having conversations with people on the porch. He likes the data that he's getting, so that may be the new way to do stuff. So my expectations after COVID-19, and I had this conversation with the state as well. I was doing a presentation with Jill Remick, who's the director of PVR for a town we were working in, and we're gonna have a committee talk about this because I think the days of 75%, 50 to 75%, we're going to be hard pressed to do that in the future. I may be wrong, but I just don't think it's going to happen in the future. So, you know, right now we're willing to do stuff. We can put our mask on. You can put gloves on. Can people open the doors, you know, walk you through. You can do that sort of stuff. I'm just not seeing any tendency for people to want to do that, to tell you the truth. So we'll see how that works out. And I think we wait and see what happens in the spring. You know, we can send postcards out again in the spring and say we're available for appointments. I don't know what's going to happen with the COVID thing by then. So we just have to kind of wait and see, I think. But right now I can tell you that most people do not want appraisers going through their houses. They just don't. They're willing to talk to you about what's there, which I think is really good. And we've got the data. We've got existing data that's there. We can go over what's there. We can have phone conversations with people that are from away. They don't have to drive up to meet with us. And you can have a conversation with them. We're willing to do that. Again, we may do appointments at a later date. And again, I'll talk about the OPDV. I got a little slide of it coming up after a while. So the question becomes, well, how can you appraise a property if you don't go into it? And again, my preference is that we would see the inside, but the biggest thing for me to go inside is really have an opportunity to talk to them. Do I need to see, for the most part, the inside of that whole house? Quite frankly, I don't. Done a lot of houses, and my point's going to be with the slides that are coming up that a lot of the data that we need to have either already exists or you can get a lot of it from the exterior. And I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but for the most part, it doesn't really make that big a difference, to tell you the truth. And it's the way that the systems are set up and the way that the tables operate. So we have existing data. The tables that we use make a lot of standard assumptions about a lot of components. We'll talk about components versus value on things. So I just took the data from Chester and I broke it down. So of all the improved properties that had improved buildings on them, 57% of that total value was from the dwelling and 28%, this is on average now, was from the land. So you really need to get that land characteristic sort of good, make sure that that's right. And the rest of it's, you know, made up of the outbuildings and the site improvements. The site improvements, they're going to be just standard. If you've got water and septic, it's a flat sort of amount. If you've got something that's really wrong with it, we can make an adjustment for it. But basically, if you've got water and septic, it's going to be some flat number for everybody, be the same. The outbuildings, we don't really look at those in terms of cost. We look at their really contributory value. You know, you can have some sort of a overbuilt garage, for example, that costs you $50,000 to build, but it may only contribute $30,000 to the value of the property. And it's just, you know, a lot of sheds and things that are like that. You just have to look more at contributory value versus the cost of those. And if you look at those bottom three types of the residential, mobile home, and the camps, you know, there really is no need to go through a mobile home. Sometimes you can have some condition issues to take a look at, and some of those can have some improvements in them. They can. And camps are pretty much just camps. I think it depends on the quality of the camp. But mostly the value of those dwellings, those types of properties are going to be in the land. So it just becomes a function of the residential properties. That's really the issue. So this slide, I talked about components. It's a slide that I put together. It's made up from we use some tables from a company called Marshall & Swift, which are a set of cost tables. And so this slide describes components to help us just have a conversation about effective age. So the top part of this, where building components are called the long-lived items. And those are things that are basically the bones of the structure. And so it's half of the components of the house. And that's really all sort of exterior sort of things that you take a look at. I won't give you a class on depreciation tonight. I can do one later if you want, but I'll just talk about components for right now. And then the interesting part is like the short-lived items, the things that can be changed as they get worn out and replaced over much shorter amount of time. So those short-lived items are 50% of all the components. But when you start adding up all those components, it's really only 30% that have any bearing from doing an interior inspection. So 70% of those are really based upon the outside, your observation from the outside. So things like, floor covers, we don't measure those up. We use the allowance that's driven by the tables that we have. The heating information we already have. The fixtures are probably already present in terms of with your bath fixtures and kitchen fixtures. We already have that information for the most part. I will grant you that sometimes looking at sometimes the types of cabinets and the countertops and things can be a nice additional information to have to judge quality. But I can tell you that pretty much exterior quality pretty much correlates with interior quality. It's not 100%, but it's a pretty high correlation. That's what I've seen over the years anyway. Let's talk about bath counts. It's something that always comes up. And I think there's two things I think if you don't do a lot of interiors that you have to be a little cognizant of. And one is baths, which are fixtures. So in the system that we use, the bath counts don't do anything. If you put in 5 baths, it doesn't change it any different from putting in 1 bath. The baths themselves are not the issue. It's the fixtures that are associated with the baths, which is what the Marshall Swift system uses. So full baths are generally 3 fixtures and half bath is generally 2 fixtures, is how they're set up. So if you look at this little chart where it says quality, well, 3 is an average quality. And the system that we use makes the assumption that an average quality house will have 8 fixtures. And so for each fixture that's above the 8, it would add $1,470. For each fixture that would be less than 8, it would take $1,470 away. So the bottom line would be that if you went to a house and you missed a half a bath, you're talking about missing $2,940 for an average house. And for a full bath, you'd miss $4,410. And then that amount is then, the depreciation is applied to that. So if you have 50% depreciation, it's half again away. So my point is that if you miss that half bath, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world either in terms of value, the overall value of the property. So what are the things that drive the tables in terms of value? Well, the first thing that you have to determine, if it's a single family type of property, if it's a mobile home, or if it's a camp, which is all obviously done from the exterior. The next consideration is going to be in terms of quality, and then that puts you to the right set of tables. And then from there, you decide if it's a 1-story, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3-story, which obviously you do style from the outside. And then it goes and does a table breakdown by type of siding, which is, wood, shingle, hardboard, vinyl, whatever. Again, that's going to be exterior. And then it's based upon the square footage, which you measure up basically from the outside. So the issue becomes the 1.5-story house. How do you know about the upstairs? And most of them, most of the average houses, you can pretty much tell where the knee wall's at. If you've been through a lot of houses, you can get a pretty good estimate of where that wall comes down and what the interior wall is upstairs. Will it be perfect? No. But if I look at that house and it's really different from what's been on the old record, then I'm going to have to ask the question somebody, possibly. So I can't assume that what was there before was correct either. But if they're close, then I feel like I'm doing all right. So when I teach my staff or I teach seminars about how to determine quality, the first thing I tell them is up here at the top, a parcel's average until it's not. So when we drive up there and we look at this house, it's going to be average until I can find some things that tell me that, well, it's either maybe better than average or it's maybe a little bit less than average. And the things that I look at, again, are these considerations that are down here. In terms of the design, are there a lot of angles? Are there cathedral ceilings? What's the sort of ornamentations going to be there? The fenestration, the number and types of windows and doors that they have. You know, better quality places have more windows and doors. They just do. The roof tells us a lot in terms of the pitch of the roof. Are there hips and there valleys in the roof? If you're thinking about better quality houses you've seen, you'll probably pretty much agree with that. You know, types of kitchens I think is a nice factor to be aware of. And I think, you know, I think if Al were here, he would tell you that he's been asking people what are the countertops made of? Are they silestone? Are they granite? Are they laminate? Or, you know, what are they? And that can kind of give you a feel for what's there, if they're stock or not.
And people are very forthcoming with that information, Ed.
Okay, go ahead, Al. Talk about that, would you?
Taking information outside from parcel owners, I think is almost more accurate than what we've experienced in the past. With probably a 60 to 70% hit ratio of people being home, I'm able to ask questions about how many fixtures are in a bathroom, what kind of finish there might be in the basement, countertops, as Ed was saying, to give me an idea of what the quality of the interior of the house is like. I'm thinking that it's almost, it's not better than walking through a house, but given the number of people that are home and willing to be honest and forthcoming about what's inside their house has been refreshing.
You know, I think that most people are fairly honest about things, to tell you the truth. Not all. I know somebody is going to try to play the game. I understand that. And my comment about that is I can't help that. You know, it's their conscience. It's not mine. I'm an honest person, so I'm going to try to be truthful about things. Not everybody's that way, but I think that most people truly are. And it's like when we just come through, like I said, we just did 10 towns. And I think if you talk to our staff about that, the people that come through, we do pre-hearings and then we have formal grievance hearings. The people that get to that second set of hearings, that first set of hearings, there's probably something that we just need to know more about. And I suspect the changes we make at that point are probably justified. I think the people are pretty honest and forthcoming about it. I just do. So, well, thanks, Al. I appreciate that. So the bottom of those is flooring, and I talked. It's a base part of the tables. We don't measure up the various types of vinyl versus wood versus slate. If it's an average house, it has average flooring. If it's a good house, it has good flooring. If it's a fair quality house, it has fair flooring in terms of the breakout. The tables take care of that. That's what they do. That's the nice thing about Marshall and Swift. This was just an interesting slide. If I'm boring you, I'm sorry. I apologize if I am. To me, I'm a statistician. I like this stuff. So bear with me, please. I give us a slide, a title of Quantity Has Its Own Quality. And if you look at the average square feet of the various quality grades, it's really almost linear in terms of as you go up in square footage, you'll find that in general that the quality readings are also higher as well. It's just an interesting sort of phenomena. So from our discussion before, I talked about that a grade 3 is average. And I'm going to point out this grouping right here. So a 275 is a little bit less than average, and a 325 is a little bit better than average. And so this includes the 275 to 3 and 325 houses, and that was 55% of the improved buildings that we had in town of Chester. So most, like I said, most places are average until they're not, and that 275 is not 25% less in quality. It's just a break in terms of the grading. It's either less than average, average, or a little bit better than average. So most of the houses fall within those three ranges that are right, three numbers that are right there. 16% are 3.5 and better, 3% or better than 4.0. If you've been to Chester, there's a lot of stock places there. There is some very nice housing. But most of them are better than average, but not 6 and 7 quality houses. They just aren't there. So to me, that was interesting that half the houses were really kind of fell within that range. Then the other one is about finished basements. You can read through this slide. I'm not going to go through every bit of this information, but basically what I found was that about 19% of the properties had some sort of finished basement in it in the town of Chester. And really in the end, that amounted to 4% of the total value of the properties. So even that finished basement was not a big deal. If it's a finished apartment, it's much more so. It's like 11%. But overall, on the average, it was 4% of the total value of the buildings, not of the overall value, just of the buildings. So, we're doing our interior inspections, we're getting our information, we're trying to have a conversation with as many people as we can, go over their data with them, get information like Al talked about. And I think, Gene, the future for listers is going to be that you have to become a sleuth. A private eye. It's going to require more looking at MLS data, more online websites to find things that are there. The data is there. You can find finished basements. You can find extra bads. You can find things that are going to be there by going online and finding information. I think listers in the future will spend more time doing that. And we'll have our online property data verification. And again, we'll try to do appointments. If we aren't doing any now, maybe we'll talk with the listers about doing a mailing and doing them later. So this is the OPDV thing. So we go to a property, we do our outside stuff, take our pictures, get information. We leave them a card that has a code, and they can log into our web server, and they put that code in this passcode, and then they can go see their property. And after about 2 weeks. The new picture, the new sketches, the data that's there. Here's some other information, parcel level, owner, sale price information. This does not have any valuation information at all. We're not doing values yet. We won't do those until next spring when we do a field review. We will drive by everything again and look at them one more time from the outside. And if they have a question about something or say something is wrong, they can go to this report, this form here, and put in their name and their information and send us a note back, and we can go in and take a look at the record. And what I can tell you is that from the 9 towns that I have data from now, probably a third of the people go actually take a look at this information. So for us, we did 10,000 properties this year. So that's a pretty good number of hits. 2 more slides and I think I'm done. So I've been telling you that the hit rate's been gone down over the past few years. So what I can tell you is that our numbers have come out pretty good despite all that. So in the last 3 years, we've finished 23 projects. And I'm pretty proud to say that our projects hold up over time pretty well. So this was a 2018 reappraisal year and a 2019 reappraisal year. So these 5 towns we did. So when we got done, and this is the state study in January of the following year, our common level assessment, which is the level of appraisal, at 100, 100, 100, basically 99 and 101. But the important part is the coefficient dispersion. That tells us how sort of accurate our data is across the grand list. So that number, if it's less than 10, is considered to be excellent. And you can see our CODs are really very, very good. So then a year goes by after the year reappraisal. How do those numbers look? Again, 101, 97, 98, 97, 97, 99, and again, good CODs. So that reflection you're seeing of this going from 100 to 97 and from 98 to 97, that's the market increases that you're seeing across these given towns. The towns we finished, just finished last year, again, the same sort of numbers we did these towns, 100s, 98, 99s, good CODs. So given the fact of what we've been doing and that the hit rates have been, interior inspections have been going down, the numbers are still coming out pretty good, and they're holding up, for the year or two after the reappraisals as well. Then lastly, I think there was some concern about getting the project done. So this is how I sort of calculate resources in terms of staffing and time involved. So with 1,000 parcels, if we're going to do 12 parcels a day, and over a period of like total 48 days, that takes 1.74 people to do that. And Al, you are the 0.74 person. You're almost a real person. So we'll round him up to 2.
I'm so excited.
I thought you might be. And with that scenario, it would take 42 days with working 3 days with 2 people to get that information collected. And with that same scenario, they have to do 10 parcels a day to get that done. So in terms of completing the project by the end of November to give us time to do sales review and then do another field review in the spring, it's just not an issue for us. And the nice thing from us for NEMRIC is that, so I'm going to have 2 people working primarily on that, but I can bring John over, or I can bring Joe over, or I can bring James down, or I can bring, somebody around. I've got 15 staff now, 16 staff now, and I can pull people from places to put them in where I need them to go. So we just did 10 reappraisals over 10,000 properties, and we were on time with every one of them. So that's, if I try to make sure that we get those projects done in a timely fashion. That's what I've got. And like I say, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have about those. Gene, I'm interested in your thoughts.
Pardon?
I'm interested in your thoughts.
Oh, I don't think so.
So you've been doing reappraisal in town before. You know what's involved with all that. Does this all make sense to you?
Yeah, yes, it does. I mean, we the 3 listers did it the last time, but that was in 2006, and it took us 3 years. But we did see get in about 90% of the properties, which was good. But that was how that many years ago, and I can understand your reasoning for the change.
I just think it's different. I just think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, I've had several people say that they wouldn't let him in.
Have you had any comments from people, Gene, in terms of people's reactions or comments about appraisers coming around?
Well, we've had a few, and they've been directed right to us listers, and we have taken care of it and made them feel at ease. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Nate, you want to unmute yourself and add into your comments?
Just a quick example. Today, I stepped foot on 15 parcels. 2 of them, I didn't stick around. One had 2 big dogs loose and one had young children at home. So I did 13 inspections today. 5 of them, I was able to hold real good interviews. And like Ed was saying and Al mentioned, you hit on those the important short-lived items. And then, and trusting that somebody's telling me that, no, the cabinets are of vintage to when that house was built in 1985. So you kind of get a good idea. So I had 5 interviews, 7 people that were not home, and I had 1 homeowner that asked that we just not even have a conversation. So essentially I just did the exterior. And so I think for a day, I had a pretty good day, to be honest with you.
Of the 11 properties that I visited today, there were 7 people at home. So I got good data from 7 people.
Did either of you actually go into those dwellings?
I did not know.
No, we are not going in dwellings at this point in the venture.
So even if you stopped at somebody's house and they say, come on in and let's look at it, you wouldn't go in?
It is my understanding right now that the protocol is that we are not to do interior inspections.
What protocol is that? From where?
An intercompany one. I think it might be, and Ed may know better, but it's an intercompany one based off of suggestions of PVR.
Is that right, Ed?
It is. And I think it's probably going to change. Although I think the governor's going to extend his emergency requirements probably on Friday, from what I hear. I don't know that it's really a concern for us to go through a property. I know up in Danville, they've been through a couple, but they've mostly just been standing sort of right in the door and having that conversation with people. But the policy has been right now, in terms of the company, that they prefer that we not do that full-blown interior inspection. Will that be changing? I think it will. Like I say, I'm maybe looking forward more to the spring, when we can do some appointments. I put this out to you, what I've done in some towns, is send postcards out in the spring to places to let them know that on maybe pick 6 or 8 or 10 days that there are going to be people available to do appointments, and have them call in and maybe, talk to Gene and say, here we're going to line up people for these appointments. We've done that in the past as well. And maybe that's what we have to think about doing in the spring. But, I can broach the owner of the company in terms of what he wants to do, if he wants to lessen that criteria right now, but that's what the company policy has been. And Chip has been in charge of our COVID protocols. And at this point, he has not given me indication he's going to change it right now, but I will have that conversation with him coming up after our meeting tonight.
Okay, because that's company, because the guidance coming down out of the state says, drive-bys are great or exteriors, but it doesn't say you can't. So it's a company policy, not a state. So my question is here, Ed, you've got a 90% in-house going into homes 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the percentage you're looking at the rate you're going here if you don't do a spring, put the card out and have 15 people call you for this town? Are you looking maybe at 30, 40%?
I think so, yeah.
So then the question is then why would anybody in the town want somebody to come in? Because if you got that low percentage of people going in, what's the benefit? Because it's unequitable. You've got,
See, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's unequitable. I don't think the way that the systems are set up that it really makes that much difference. I think I'm going to pick up on occasion a half bath. I might pick up on occasion a little more, even more finished area, but I might pick up less finished area in a basement for things. It just, quite frankly, it just doesn't make that much difference, to tell you the truth. The way that tables are set up and working, and I've got, if I got the square footage right, I can make the quality determination from the outside, make a condition determination from the outside. I know what the siding is. I know what the roof is. I've got the basic information that I need. It really is to make them feel more comfortable. That really, or if there's a situation where something has really gone downhill, then it really is, they really want us to go through.
Well, the problem is, Ed, that if you're only doing a small percentage, and people know that, there's no incentive for people to let you in at all. And particularly if they have done something, most people are pretty honest, but there's no incentive for them to let you in.
There never is any incentive for them to let me in, to tell you the truth.
Well, but we were a prior history, our town was, come on in. Now that was not a COVID time, but you see what I'm saying? If you could in the spring go in, I mean, it was more, we're a little welcoming town. Now, granted, we had some movement, but there's still a lot of the same people living here in this town as there was 12 years ago.
And we'll do the best we can to accommodate them. We will.
If I may, Ms. Chapman,
Yes.
if I may, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think you're also seeing 10 or 12 years ago that a one or multiple long staple fellow community members, or your listers, are being let into the homes. Now, fast forward 10 or 12 years, we've gone through an economic downturn in the middle of all that. Now we're into COVID, and now you have a strange company. So people are going to be less likely to let me in than Gene. But to just back up again, so just take like today alone, again, I talked to 5 people. Would any one of them 5 had let me in? None of them asked, can you come in? Let me clarify that. We just had the conversation about, we're here to do the inspection. If all those 5 people let me in, I still only got into 30% of my houses today. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, we can do everything we can. And the OPDV thing, I'm pushing that hard in my conversation. Try to get it up above 30%. Try to get the people to buy into their own data and give us some help with providing a change here or there. And I think that'll be beneficial if we can get your town to do that.
It doesn't seem like a very good system to me.
And then I've got the question of how is this going to change? We're going to get this all done, and next year it's going to be set up. But we're still in this COVID land where we've got people coming up, or not even coming up. There's just buying sight unseen, even in this town. You know, how's that going to affect it going forward too? I mean,
I can tell you, I think the days of doing interior inspections are coming to an end in Vermont. I think I'm following things around the country. I'm a member of the IAAO, and it's the same thing everywhere.
well, then we're looking at what you're saying out Midwest, that we're going to be sitting here changing our zoning laws so that we make sure we can get the extra bathroom, the finished basement. I mean, because I think we all know somebody in this town that's probably done something in 12 years that, you know, we hope, you know, would come up, but maybe not. I mean, now, are you guys aware of the fact that the town article was passed back in 2014 regarding the solar? For solar panels, we voted to exempt property from property tax assessment, solar electric systems, including panels, inverters, battery systems, and balance of system components, and solar thermal systems located on residential, agriculture, and business properties.
Unless they're more than 50,000 kilowatts, they are not.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, but just to make sure that you guys are aware of that too.
Yeah.
I talked with Gene about that early on, yes.
Good. Good.
What else?
Any other questions from the public? Paul Normando.
Paul, you need to unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Ed, I have a couple questions. I'm very concerned about being a member of the Board of Civil Authority and having to deal with, I think, will be a large number of appeals, given the fact that you're only going into, expect to go into 30 to 40% of your houses. I think people will come in and say, well, they didn't even come into my house. How do they know what I have? And, you know, you get a large number of appeals anyway in a year of reappraisal. And yeah, I know, are you as an appraiser going to be going through appeals with, or reviews with individual property owners that have questions on them?
Yeah, I will tell you that we don't have a lot of appeals. We just don't. We've just finished up 10 reappraisals in all 10 towns. A couple of them are pretty good size. In all total, we're going to have 20 BCAs. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
we've only got two in Chester that I'm doing tomorrow night.
right, and we have some towns we don't have any. We just don't get a lot of BCAs. We just don't, because we first of all, quite frankly, our data is pretty good. I think when people look at it, they see it's fairly consistent with things. I think our people do a good job talking to property owners and making them, when we do our pre-hearings, and we spend a lot of time doing pre-hearings, answering questions, going on for information. We get a lot of info. If people come into pre-hearings, a lot of times they just have questions, but sometimes we just you know, they give us good information. But we don't have a lot of appeals. We just don't. For example, we did Woodstock 4 or 5 years ago. We had 14 appeals to BCA, and 6 of those were current use. It had nothing to do with what we did. We just don't get a lot of them, to tell you the truth. And we work hard to not have a lot of those, because we know that they're very time consuming. They're expensive for the town, they're expensive for us. So we work hard to make sure that people understand what we've done, and that go over the data that we have. And they're going to have access to the data and be able to see what their data is. So I think that works.
So on some of those, the few appeals that you've had to the BCA, when it comes to, say, somebody that actually let you in and they're trying to use a couple other 3 houses that for comparables that you guys didn't go into, how can they use those if you really don't know? Say that person that's appealing, okay, knows that the next house over that is comparable has something more that wasn't put on the card, but how can you use that as a comparable then if you've never been in the house?
They'll bring that up, you know, and we'll take that into consideration. We won't make that change right then and there. We'll pass that along to the lister so that they can be aware of that. But and also keep in mind that when you get a bank appraisal done on a property, those appraisers don't go through those comps. They don't. They take information that's there. They might have been through some of those earlier, but they don't make it a point to go back and look at those comps. They look at the subject, but not the comps.
Paul?
Yeah, following up on that though, and I spent some years ago, but I spent 35 years in the real estate business.
Yeah.
And I would never have dared to give somebody an estimate of value on the selling price of their house without examining the interior.
Right.
Couple questions comes up with respect to that.
Paul.
I'm sorry. What?
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, okay. Depreciation, both functional and physical depreciation. How do you take that into consideration if you haven't been inside the house? I mean, you may have the bathrooms. They may have been created in 1950, or they may have been created in 2010. And I know you said they reflect a small percentage of the value, but you take the small percentage of the value in bathrooms, add up the small percentage of the value of finished basements, and add up the small percentage of the value of the other items that you mentioned, and they can add up to a fairly significant amount.
Depreciation is based upon effective age and overall condition. And I've got a set of tables that I've put together over the past 38 years, and they just work. And it's really just an observation the real key is to deal with effective age. The actual age doesn't really make that much difference, as you know. It's really, but I will tell you again that the exterior condition correlates really high with the overall condition of the property. It just does. It just does.
So if a house is well painted on the outside, you're assuming it's well cared for on the inside.
You can look at the windows and see, you look at the roof and you can see if you've got some things that are, not being maintained. It's more than just paint. It's the whole structure. But they do correlate really well, as you know, Paul.
Another question, you mentioned about quality seems to increase, the quality of the house seems to increase with the size. Well, there are a lot of old homes in Dummerston that are large. Some of them may have very high quality and some of them may not be so high quality. How do you necessarily correlate those two things?
I mean, again, that's just the chart just showed what had been done. It's not going to be 100%, but again, it just sort of, it's the correlation thing. And, from my experience, I think you'll probably agree with this. If I've got a house that's 200 years old, it probably is better quality than a house today in terms of materials and maybe building, how it was built and things like that. It may have some condition issues and some age issues, but the quality is probably going to be, if it's 200 years old, it was well built, if it's lasted that long. It was. So you can take and there are probably a lot of those may even have been, especially the old colonials and the old Victorians, they're always typically, a little bit larger in terms of square footage. And then you have to make a decision about, like you said earlier, is there a functional loss in terms of the value because of the size? Has the market changed today? Are people less inclined to the larger house because of heating issues? Have a conversation with them. Have they done, Nate used to work for a company and they what was it called, Nate? Used to work for?
SEVEDS.
Right.
We did the weatherization.
They did the weatherization stuff. And so, he can sort of tell what's been done to those places because that's what he did for a long, long time. So again, you can get pretty much what you need from a conversation and from doing a really good exterior inspection of things. And again, you've already got, for the most part, you got the existing data that was there. So you've got the square footages, you've got probably what the bath counts were, the kitchen counts, things along those lines. And you can tell quality from really looking at that type of structure.
Yeah, you may not, though. To Terry's point, someone may have done a tremendous amount of improvements in the last 12 years since the last internal inspection of the house.
That's true.
And you may not take that into consideration.
That's absolutely true.
So,
Yeah, my
But we're having those conversations. We're trying to have those conversations with these folks. And we can get that out of the conversation.
I think the
but if you're only talking to 30% of the people.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Excuse me. The concern here for me, not that this, is that standardizing the process seems to be a dubious approach, frankly, in a community that's so diverse.
I guess I'd look at the other way. I think you want it standardized as much as possible. I tell you the truth. I think you want it consistent. And I think that's what you get with it, looking at it this way. You're looking for consistency of the valuation process. And I think that the system that we're using is sort of adheres to that a little bit.
Well, see, what we're really looking for is the most equitable, so that we don't have one house that's appraised that are paying more taxes than needed. We want the most equitable for our town residents.
So what percentage do you think is like that?
Well, when you're done as a fresh look at it, as like the 12 years ago, when they went in over 90%, you knew exactly if there was a new kitchen put in or a new basement. So you got it as close to perfect. I mean, I don't want to see always at some point back in the day, there has been gross discrepancies. We're looking to make sure that all our town residents are on at least as close to a level playing field with their taxes as possible.
I mean,
It's never going to be 100%.
It will not, and that's why my whole point is it's going to be less and less as time goes by. We'll go to 90% of places if people let us go in. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Who makes the appointments? Do you make the appointments, or do the listers make the appointments to get it to examine houses?
So what I've set up with Gene is like we go, nobody's home, we leave the door card. If they call, the door card it says to call the lister's office if you want to make an appointment. What I've set up with the listers is to start planning those for Thursdays, to make appointments for Thursdays. And they're going to take them and they're going to try to stack them regionally so that I'm not going from one end of the town to the other end of the town on a Thursday. You know, they're going to try to manage those for me. And then they're going to give me, here is this Thursday's appointments, and then I'm going to go handle them. That's the process we've set up with myself and the listers. And that's the process similar we do in every town.
So I'm curious if we would be having this conversation, or I should ask it the other way around. Are we having this conversation because of COVID? Because it makes even less of a chance that it decreases the chances that people are going to let them into the house to do an interior inspection?
I think so. I do.
I think so too, but also remember, out of the ones that I did today, only 30% of them were even home for me to even talk to. So 7 weren't even home.
But you didn't have an appointment.
Well, no, the appointments come after the initial visit. So out of those 7, let's see how many of those 7 call for an appointment. You're absolutely right.
I suspect if you had made an appointment, that people would probably have tried to make themselves available if they knew you were coming. If they want to let you in the house.
I think they're missing the process a little. I mean, we don't make appointments prior to going there.
You know, if you're going to do a reappraisal by doing appointments, because Gene said it took him 3 years. I think it'd take you 5 years to get them done. I don't know what your percentage increase would be. Then you get a 5-year-old data to deal with. You're starting over again. I know that in the town of Underhill, for example, that's what they did. And they made appointments to go do the place. It took them 5 years to do a reappraisal. And it's about the same size as Dummerston, to tell you the truth.
I'm wondering if that's what the select board expected when they did a contract with you. I don't know what the expectations were, but I'm sort of throwing that out as a question.
Well, I think I'd throw that back to the listers. What was the listers' expectation?
If you want me to say anything, I'll just say that we expected that they were more professional than the listers in a town. Although I do know that probably one of the good things about having the listers come in is because people know us, but we were not as capable with all the knowledge we do have as somebody that does this every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we're debating here is, I mean, what I hear, let me see if I can try to describe this. What I hear Ed describing is a process where and you're basically, by the exterior inspection, you're comparing houses. Let's leave the interior out. You're comparing, and so you're trying to convince us that with this exterior inspection, you can judge the quality, which equals the value of the house.
Yes, you're judging a book by its cover.
Judging a book by its cover. And that, you know, I think he's put forward a pretty good argument. I think that as a realtor, you know, like listening to Paul and thinking about selling someone a house, you know, they would never buy it from the outside. They would have to see the inside. And as people living in houses, we're very focused on kitchens and number of bathrooms. And, you know, we think of that as the value of a house. When in fact, what Ed's trying to convince us is the value of a house is, you know, is influenced by that, but that's not what makes it. So
keep in mind that we aren't doing comparables. This is when you're doing an assessment for a town, you're developing a model. You're developing a mathematical model. And that's how you value the property. That's how it's done. It's been done that way for 40 years in Vermont. But you're not, we have a comparable system we can use, but we don't use it to determine what the values is. It might be using it as an adjunct to confirm the value that we have. And the difference between what we do for a mass appraisal approach is that our model is then tested every year by the state. It's evaluated every year. That's what that equalization does. When you do a single family appraisal, for a bank, it's never tested. And quite frankly, in my opinion, if you have a diverse town, the single property appraisal is not very good. It's not very accurate. And that's the nice thing about what the model is it is at least tested every year. You know how well you're doing.
One of the other objections I have to the approach is that the correlation between size and value, many of the new houses that are built, small, energy efficient, and quite very expensive houses, they may be only 1,400 square feet, but have cost $400,000 to $500,000.
But that wasn't my point. My point was that this is how it just worked out. I'm just showing you what the data shows.
You're giving us cookie cutter responses here. You know, you have a model. You think it's a great model. There's questions on the board here as to whether it is appropriate for this community. So that's it. You know, you have your model, and we have questions.
Yeah, I understand.
How about I do this just for my own, I mean, I could share it with Gene and Gene could share it with you. How about I do this? I'm going to do inspections there tomorrow and Friday. How about in the interviews that I hold, or when let me back up. When I get somebody at the door, how about I ask them, will you allow me into your house? Just like I normally would without COVID. And I'll take the data and I'll find out how many of your residents are still willing to have somebody come through their house. And we'll add that, and that will help us understand that it's not just on our end saying, no, we're not coming in. I believe you're going to have people that do not want a stranger. They don't know where I've been. They don't know my contact. Yes, I have a mask on. But this protection thing on a whole, COVID has to be equal. You know, people have to be safe together in order for this to go away. So I'm just saying, you know, Mr. Norman, anybody, you know, you may not want me in your house in this time, even more so than in general.
Oh, totally.
So, but it's just a question. It's just a thought. I mean, I can pose that to folks, and then we'll know just how many people are still going to say no.
Well, I don't think we would know from a sample of 11, but, and I think that it would take a certain amount of education in the town relative to COVID and letting somebody in the house, you know, in terms of, do the listers think it's safe? Does the select board think it's safe? Have we sent information out that encourages people to understand why it is safe? Just randomly, you know, asking to go into somebody's house during this time, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot less.
I agree.
So I think it's just a matter of whether we think that exterior inspections will build an equitable appraisal for the town based on the model, as David said, based on the model that Ed has provided. But I think we've gotten all the information we can get.
Paul?
I think the goal is to come up with fair market value, as close to fair market value as you possibly can using your model. And, you know, you provided some information that says that historically you've been able to do that based upon subsequent sales and equalization studies that have been performed. I still find it very, very difficult to understand how you can come up with fair market value without going inside a house and making and then making some comparisons with existing sales data.
I can tell you as it works, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Any other questions? I guess we're going to let this process continue. And I guess just we'll keep appraised of how it's going through talking with the listers. And if it warrants asking you to come back, we'll do that for an update.
Yep.
As this goes. But maybe we've done as much as we're going to do tonight. What do members think?
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was
do
really,
too.
really helpful, though, to have your presentation, Ed, and, you know, Nate, your input, and Paul, I've appreciated your questions. So I think it's been a really productive discussion, and I don't feel, you know, alignment around it, but we'll see where that goes.
And we'll have more discussion later on.
David, you were going to say something, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have the opportunity to revisit this at appropriate times in the future.
Sure.
Okay, very well.
Okay,
Thanks
thank you.
for listening.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I hope I didn't bore you. I'm sorry if I.
Not at all.
No.
No,
Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, goodbye.
Real quick,
right.
I don't want to, Gene and Steve, just to let you know that I'll be finishing Hague Road tomorrow, and then I'll be starting on the far end of East-West, just so that you know where I'm at.
Okay, great.
All right?
Jump in, please.
We've been getting material ready for you, so there's more in the file cabinet.
Yeah,
So.
we saw those today. All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving on our agenda. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Let's see. The road foreman's report. Terry, you've been our surrogate road foreman.
right. So I'll give you a quick rundown. 629 clean culvert spot grading, 630 under drain, 60 Brook Road spot grading, 77-1 driveway culvert Sunset Lake Road spot grading, 7.2 cleaning culverts spot grading, 7.6 under drain Hopkins Road clean culverts, 7.7 concrete forms, made sand, worked on backhoe, 7.8 cleaning up some trees under drain and making stands, 7.9 culvert at Park Lawton Road and made sand, finished under drain Park Lawton on the 10th and made sand. So then that's his report. And then I've had a chance to speak to Lee this afternoon regarding the covered bridge and the trash issue. And he's ordered on his little list here, he has ordered no littering signs for the covered bridge area that says no littering, $500 fine. So when I went through this morning, Monday morning, there was 2 huge bags of garbage, so I let him know, and this is what he has come up with for thoughts on how to deal with this. One would be to put the no littering signs up and have the sheriff's department sit in the park and ride to actually enforce the $500 fine because it was that bad down there. Or he really believes and goes along with, he talked to Mark Pickering, is it Mark Pickering?
Yes,
Mark. With state, and we do have the right to put up barriers so that nobody can go in and park at the park and ride during this time when they're all swimming, to stop some of this trash, force them to be up on park on Route 30. And that would be, he thinks, would be a little bit better in terms of maybe this trash in and not coming out.
Was the trash there trash that had been collected down by the water and then brought up to the parking lot?
There was some of that, but I don't believe there was enough bags down there. He said it was really, really bad and disgusting down there. It's not good. So he does have a way of putting some barriers up to stop the park and ride, because the majority of cars that are in there, over 90% are out of state. These are not locals that are using it right now. And it did make, our covered bridge did make Facebook last night of what was going on down there.
So it's on the weekend that he would do that?
No, it would be just barriered off now because they're there all the time now with this heat.
Mm-hmm. And so did somebody just, a good Samaritan, fill those bags with the trash?
Yes, I guess a good Samaritan took a couple trash bags down and left them, and they filled up quickly, but more quickly than there was trash bags. So there's still stuff down. There was still stuff down there, and
we feel like people are not using it as a park and ride?
No, it's being used for a recreation area by, well, Vermonters are trying to get up there, but I mean, most of the time it's not Vermonters in there.
Right, but it's, I mean, in the winter, it's used as a park and ride.
The winter it's for used as a park and ride, and we wouldn't keep it barriered only until the heat of this, you know, for the next, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, mm-hmm. until we can get, but it's kind of, from what I'm gathering from talking to him, it's pretty much out of control right now.
And so are there any, is there any ordinance or rule or whatever that would preclude us from blocking entrance to the park and ride, to that parking lot?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's within our ability to just say, yeah, let's put, 4 Jersey barriers there and block it off.
Yeah.
We can do
I don't believe we have any ordinance to say we can, and that's why he checked with the state, and they said, if that's what you want to do, you have every right to do it.
Well, I think we should do it.
will we be creating a problem with cars backing up on Route 30, pulling over on the?
I don't think they'll come. I don't think they'll do it.
Just wanna come take photos of the bridge and pull over, and the people who are going to go swimming there anyway. There'll be like, I'm wondering if we're going to create a situation like further up Route 30 at Depot Road, where we'll have people, parking along the edge of Route 30.
I don't know. I don't think we would be doing that. I don't think it's as established. I think it's just it's a really easy, nice place to go, and making it less easy. I would hate to create an accident because we put those up. That would be a bummer. Somebody does park in the shoulder and then bikers are going and they've got to pull out into the lane and then they get hit by a car. I mean, that would be a real shame to.
Right. And it is a good place for families with kids, because there's some sand and, so it's to try to prevent people from doing that just doesn't seem good to me.
We need a trash monitor.
Well, then if we don't want to go along with that way, then let's face it, we're gonna spend an awful lot of money on garbage removal this year. And then where do you want the guys? I mean, we're not sending, I don't think we should be sending our road crew down into that with this type of garbage when you've got COVID like you do. So if it gets put up to the top, he's willing to pick it up, not every day. I mean, he's got stuff going with the guys, but then let's face it, we're going to be spending a lot more out of the budget because garbage isn't cheap anymore to get rid of.
Okay.
So where do we want to go with this? And then, do I want to send the sheriff department, just to check in there to see if they're, to do the $500 fine? Maybe we could then pick up that with the trash. I don't know. But which way do you want to go? I mean, personally, I agree with Geraldine to give it a trial space because it is pretty rough. Let me tell you, it's pretty rough. Going up and back up by there at least 3 or 4 times a week, the whole thing's out of hand. If we do this though, and decide to put those up there, I will automatically have Lee put the no trespassing or no parking signs at the Taft Cemetery. Because we're already dealing with 6 to 8 cars out of state at the Taft anyway. But they haven't gone down in yet, luckily.
Okay. Blocking off the park and ride. What I think will happen will be people will park on the edge of the road and go down there and bring their picnic lunch and their whatever else they're bringing in their coolers. It may not solve the trash problem, and may make Route 30 and that intersection a more dangerous.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely make it more dangerous. There's no question about that.
Yep.
So then if that's where you want to go, we've got to come up with some criteria because Lori's getting calls in quite a bit of the time about this trash problem. We probably ought to set some little parameters here so that they're all well aware of. Do we want the guys down in the hole? No, because they didn't feel comfortable.
Sure.
And we just going to have Lee put the no littering signs up and then just picking up when he has a chance to come over this way? I think it's on this way. Whatever, when somebody notices them, or how do we want to do it?
Okay.
Well, I don't think it's a good idea for us to be leaving trash bags there to fill because that only encourages people to leave trash. It's like leaving a trash can out. It's going to get full and it's going to overflow. If there's nothing there available for people to fill, they may be more apt to leave with their trash, maybe not. And, if the place is totally trashed, who's going to take their family there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did we end up dealing with, was it Johnson's Curve or Johnson's, where people were leaving couches and
Yeah. Well, we put up no littering, $500 fine.
we did.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or the state did. It's actually the state's land.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I guess I would, I think that's a better first step. I'm concerned about making it a dangerous place there with the barriers.
Shall we go with the signs? I'm wondering, do we check around and see, is there a company we can contract with, like we do for mowing the lawns at the cemetery, who will I actually don't like that idea either.
No, I don't think so.
No.
What did you have to say, Paul? Paul had his hand up for a few.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Girl-
I agree with Zeke that I think if the parking situation is such, I think you're going to force the parking on Route 30.
No,
People are going to go there anyway because it's an attractive place to go. As a suggestion on a sign, instead of a don't litter sign, a lot of places, parks and things have signs that say, if you carry it in, carry it out.
That's
So
what I was
maybe
thinking too.
maybe something along the lines of, please, appeal to people's good sense and say, if you, something along those lines, as a suggestion.
I'd have to check with him, Paul, to see if he's already ordered the no littering or if he hasn't, if he could find those, maybe a couple of each, maybe even a mixture.
Yes. If we talk softly but carry a big stick,
Right.
we
I think,
can have both.
yeah, I mean, at the top, I think the no littering $500 fine sign is great. And then down below, like Paul said, a lot of state parks or,
Yeah.
hiking trails, pack in, pack out.
Okay.
I
So
think,
go ahead, Maria.
I think too that whoever the Good Samaritan is that's leaving trash bags, if we know who he is, and I'm assuming maybe Lori might, because he might be the same one calling the town office, we should encourage him to not leave the trash bags, because the problem is people are going to fill them, and it's just going to encourage people to leave trash. I think if we know who he is, we should try to let him know not to leave empty trash bags there. Unfortunately, it's being taken advantage of.
It might be creating a situation where people would have taken their trash out, but they see these trash bags there and they think,
Right.
okay.
So-
Exactly.
So why don't I talk to Lee in the morning about what he's got, if he's ordered the signs or not, if we can mix them up a little bit, and then I'll let Lori know about the trash bags and whoever this Good Samaritan is. And then we could maybe, when Lee comes at the next meeting, we could revisit this in case and see how this runs for 2 weeks.
Yep, let's do that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So the only other thing he's doing is he still can't get parts for the mower.
Oh.
Okay. He is looking at doing research on the mower that he was trying, the side mower. Maybe Maria can kind of give me more detail if I mess this up. But the side mower he was looking at getting, he can't actually look at one. There's none in the area to look at. So, which concerns him about purchasing it. So he's now looking at a 3-point brush hog in conjunction with one of those flail mowers on the side that would be about roughly the same as what he's got now, or maybe a grade better. But putting the two together, he thinks he could work this out okay. And he's planning on having 3 bids for us at the next meeting for the brush hog to see where they come in. But he believes if he bought both of those things, it would definitely still be under what was in the capital plan.
Okay, so he's not thinking of using them both at the same time, since they both are power takeoff. things.
Right.
Making 2 passes or using them in different places, or, okay, I'm sure he's thought it through or is thinking it through.
Yeah, and the trouble with the bush hog is it sits directly behind the tractor, so they're going to be driving over whatever obstacle that would be on the roadside before it even gets the grasses get cut. So I mean, who knows? I mean, we could be doing more damage to the tractor
Right.
than yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
The side mount mowers, you have better reach and you can almost sit in the road and make that first pass without having to drive over whatever you're going to mow. And you can't use them simultaneously. They work off the PTO. So, and no tractor has 2 PTOs that I'm aware of. So,
right.
So he's going to be taking them on and off. It's not something, I don't know.
Yeah. Doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll hear, maybe when he comes next time, we'll get some more information about what he's thinking. Sounds like going back to a sickle bar mower.
Okay.
Where are we?
All right. The other thing on the road foreman is the insurance for the highway worker.
Right. Okay. So we just learned that, and we added it to the agenda. One of the highway crew is turning 26, and so no longer eligible under their parents' insurance. And so he's been getting a payment in lieu of insurance, but he'd like to go on the town's health insurance. We would, of course, we hadn't anticipated this, but we probably have enough money in the highway department, plus that money that would be going to the payment in lieu of insurance towards this. So we would just need a motion to add this fellow to the health insurance, if you want to do that.
And the expense of this, because it's not budgeted under health insurance, will come out a different line item from the highway department?
I think I saw a note or somewhere that Lee thought he had some funds that he could, from his surplus, that he could put towards this. So we wouldn't have that's just something that he had said.
Right. So it'll be coming out of the highway department, according to Lee.
So right now, this fellow gets $167 a month from the payment in lieu of insurance, and the premium, should he go on the health insurance, would be $571. And because we offer insurance to every eligible employee, he is an eligible employee, so
we don't have a choice. We really have a choice.
No. So
I move that we add this gentleman to the insurance.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, I'll let Charlotte know that. Great.
Okay.
And one under the road foreman's report, we had a request for, let's see, I don't exactly remember, but concern about traffic on Middle Road by Dutton Farm Road. And usually when we get requests of that nature, we ask Wyndham Regional Commission to conduct a traffic survey in that area. And I don't recall the last time we did one in that area, but that would be, I think, the first step is to collect the data for that section of the road. So,
since the original email came to me,
yeah,
I will be happy to contact the Wyndham Regional Commission to see if they can set up a road study.
Okay, is that good with everyone?
You're muted, Geraldine.
Yeah.
I said it sounds great. Thanks, David.
Right.
Okay. All right. Great. Good. Thank you, David. Anything else on the road foreman report?
I think we've hit it all.
Great. I have 15% left on my computer, so
Uh-oh. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Correspondence for information. Is there anything there you'd like to discuss?
The only thing I want to add to, or addendum to the zoning administrator's quarterly report, the noted in terms of what they need for members is actually they're looking for 1 regular member and 2 alternates. They're down. So if anybody's interested in town, please give us a email.
Okay. And that you said is for the DRB.
That is for the DRB.
Okay, great. I have a candidate in mind.
Wonderful.
I'll pass that information along. Under correspondence for discussion and/or action, David received an email which he forwarded to all of us. A resident concerned about a biomass facility being proposed for Putney Road in Brattleboro, or Ferry Road or something. Maybe, David, you have the detail?
I'm not quite sure exactly where. I have a feeling it's behind the Agway.
Okay.
The information has been passed on to Eric.
Okay.
Of the Energy Commission, and he is looking into it, researching what it is, and I will coordinate. I'll talk with him and report back to the board as if any action is needed or desired by us. I mean, we may not have any control over something that Brattleboro is doing.
Right, and the concern was pollution.
Right.
I don't think that was mentioned.
No, that's right. You're right.
Pollution from this potential facility for residents of Dummerston.
Yeah, and it's a wood burning facility.
This is at Allard, probably.
Allard.
They have, or maybe they.
Jen probably knows.
No, Jen's saying no.
No.
All right.
I think
whatever.
I think it's a new one.
All right. Great. All right. Okay. Well, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Moving on, under new business, we have the SeVEDS request regarding town meeting article warning.
Hi.
Hi. You've been very patient.
That's what I was thinking.
I apologize. I would have moved you up had I known that. I just thought you were very interested in our town affairs.
You deserve a medal, by the way.
No, I learn a lot. I actually do. I actually lived in Massachusetts, and so even like learning more of the ins and outs of the listers process is really good for me. So it's
Okay. All right.
You're also really nice about this meeting. I'm Jen Stromston, by the way. I usually Sarah Lang is, I think, more often your liaison. We have petitioned and been funded successfully 3 years in a row, which in many towns means that we can stop petitioning for 5 minutes until the census changes all the numbers. We have to start again, but that we can stop petitioning and we would be able to go in as an article next year without petitioning. But we don't actually know that that is the case in Dummerston. We don't have affirmative confirmation that that is your practice or that's on the books anywhere. So that, I think, was the question we were bringing to you. That's question number one.
Yeah.
Okay. And David, you?
Well, I've looked into this. You're right. We do not have a policy in Dummerston. I've looked at the model policy of the VLCT. Which I've sent around to everyone, and the model policy does not require going back to the electorate as long as you've been approved once, actually, and that is the model ordinance. So if we were to adopt the model ordinance, which to me seems like a good idea, an organization would not have to go back to the to petition after they've been approved one time.
Huh. Okay.
That would be amazing. So this is probably a discussion that's bigger than, if it's not something that you already have an ordinance and you need to make a decision on, then we probably need to sort of step back and let you have that process, because our second question would be, if you were asking us to petition, we're sort of struggling with how to do that given the COVID stuff. So we're working on things with mailing and stuff like that. But I just, that's for us a specific consideration. There are towns where we were not passed successfully at full funding last year. And, we're trying to have discussions about ways that we can modify our practice.
In terms of priorities for ordinances, we probably, if we were to undertake some new ordinances, we'd probably, in my opinion, tackle some other ones first. So we might not get to this before town meeting, but that's just my opinion. Any other thoughts?
Well, having is the process to go through and get a new ordinance, is that a lengthy process, or can that happen with a motion that we will?
No, it requires public hearings.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And it may, unlike the dog hearing we're going to have, this one might require a 30-day warning.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
And do we have protocol, past situations where something that was petitioned then became an article?
No, not that I recall.
No. My opinion is I'm inclined to say continue with petitioning at this point. With everything going on, I understand it's not going to be easy, but the process of going through ordinance, I mean, just from this agenda tonight, our plate is quite full. So I'm inclined to lean towards continuing to ask them to petition.
I would suggest that would be the safe way of doing it, rather than for us to successfully address this. And of course, going through an ordinance is not a guarantee that it's going to pass either. So,
and just for clarification, once something is an article, then it's more likely to it's part of the budget. And then, how does it make it different that it's an article as opposed to petition?
I mean, there are towns that do it every single way. We have towns that where the select board just puts us into the budget, approves an amount. We have towns where we petition, we go to a separate article. We have one town that puts us in with other social services agencies. It's there are different practices. And typically it's easier for us to conform to those. I mean, we haven't figured out how we're doing this year because I frankly have, many staff members who are not comfortable being out in public and doing this. So, we'll figure out how to navigate this. That's our problem. But as far as what your options are, there are many different ways you can actually proceed. It's really just a matter of sort of culture and practice in your community.
Paul Normando, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I think, if I just throw in my opinion is that I don't think you really need an ordinance to do this. And I think an ordinance would probably hamper you in future years on other organizations.
Right.
And I would recommend or suggest that the board just place an article in the warning without and let the voters decide what they want to do with that at town meeting. And that way there, you're avoiding the need of having people going out and petitioning. And it seems too bad to have them have to do that during these times. But that just because you do it this year doesn't mean you have to do it next year, but it gives the board flexibility in deciding what to do and which articles to have in play.
Right. But I wonder if we put it on, if we're setting a precedent that would require boards in the future to have to do that.
Well,
I don't think so. I think the board's discretion, whether an article gets placed or not, it's the board's decision. I'll bow out now. Thank you.
I mean, I think that the fact that SeVEDS has 3 years in a row successfully petitioned the town and gotten funded, I'm fine with making it an article. I don't, and especially during this particular year, having more people going around town is not something we want to encourage.
Right. If we have it as an article that we put on, then it would be up to our discretion as to what amount we put, just as we do with other social service organizations. So, or the paving budget or so. So
right, but
this would it certainly be something I'd consider doing, but maybe not at this particular meeting. We could have it on the agenda for another meeting.
Awesome. And one thing I just want to say is, for as much as I am concerned, everyone's at a different comfort level right now. So, but I can't picture folks who don't want to come into the office yet, wanting to sit at the co-op. And that's where we meet a lot of like Dummerston folks at a lot of the, other areas where they kind of congregate for shopping or social things. And that's the part, where it is hard to find people in places like Dummerston. So we go to places that are kind of the worst places to go. Having said that, last year we started a practice of starting to do some town information sessions. And, I'm going to miss petitioning. And I hate to say that because I think I got the worst cough ever. I lost my voice for 3 weeks, hanging out there in the snow and rain. But it is when I talk to hundreds of people, we all talk to hundreds of people. And so that's a piece that we're worried about and I don't want to lose. And I feel that accountability to the voters. Town meeting day isn't enough. Like the petitioning is a big piece of that. So we have to figure out how we can be more available to people and create that accountability and the feedback. We get a lot of feedback during that time. So.
Okay. So if members are agreeable, we'll address this at a future meeting and not, and address it in a timely way also.
I really appreciate it. I'm down to 12% on my laptop, but I just say thank you very much.
Okay, so
Thank you, Jennifer.
thanks,
Thank you.
thanks.
Did it.
All right, we had a letter about concern about Hill Road, speeding on Hill Road, and a request to reduce speed limits, but then it sort of evolved from there. Terry, do you have?
Right. So it was one of those to reduce the speed limit. So Hill Road, if you're not familiar, goes to Lost Mile Road, which is Newfane, which goes back to us again. So I checked in with Newfane. We're 35 on Hill Road. Newfane's got Lost Mile at 30. And they're looking, this gentleman was looking to decrease Hill Road to 25 from 35 because of the speeding rental trucks, which are probably UPS trucks, because some of their trucks have been down. So it's one of those things of what the board wants to do regarding reducing the speed limit up there, knowing that people are going from Dummerston to Newfane, back to Dummerston, and Newfane's is 30.
Right. And I don't know if changing the signs is going to have much effect on those trucks coming through. We could ask Wyndham Regional Commission to do a traffic survey up there.
I mean, that's a good possibility on that. David?
Yes?
While you're calling the Wyndham Regional Commission to do a traffic survey on the Middle Road, would you ask him to do it on Hill Road?
Yes. And between what, all of Hill Road, is it that you?
No, down by the, we know this is a long meeting, right down toward the end. What's it intersect with? I want to say Stickney Brook? No? Am I right?
Lost Mile, Hopkins Road.
Okay. It's down in,
Bear.
it's down near the end, down in, that Maria.
Steve Mandel would know.
Well, Terry, just find out the intersection and the.
Right, I will give you the address of the residence. Thank you.
When they ask me what you're talking about, I'll be able to tell them.
Right, I'll give that to you tomorrow. I think my computer isn't down in memory, it's my brain at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they'll watch 5 people go by, right? I mean, it's just not a frequented road.
They put out tapes.
No,
And it records the speed, the number of vehicles and the speed at which they're going.
Oh, that's true. Okay, right.
They do it over a couple of weeks, and then they take that information and chart it out or graft it out.
I'll be really curious. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like okay.
Terry, could you get back to resident? Could you get back to that resident?
Yes, I will. I will be glad to write him and let him know what we're doing.
Great.
Okay.
Let's see. We have dog ordinance information. And what dog ordinance information do we have? Oh,
Well,
David, you were looking into this?
I took a look at at our dog ordinance and the dog ordinance, the model dog ordinance of the town, of VLCT, pardon me, and they're very similar. I don't think we really need to have a new ordinance or adopt to the VLCT ordinance. Ours is quite adequate to deal with the issues that come in, that occur.
Huh. Okay.
I think one of the questions I had, though, when things go wrong and there's a dog that needs to be restrained, somebody has to go and get that dog. And I don't know, do we have a process for doing that?
Yes, you call the animal control officer, which David
Yeah.
is the newest member on the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get out your net.
I don't think I'm equipped for that.
So start carrying a few dog biscuits in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right. So we had animal control officers in the past. We have no one filling in that role, and so the duty falls to the members of the select board. Terry's been trying to get some information for our next budget on, can we contract this out with either the sheriff or possibly we're looking into, could we share the services of the Brattleboro Animal Control Department? So we're looking at that. Because, you know, actually trying to get the new members of the select board to take this on hasn't worked well
Right.
in recent years.
I think we're going to have to, David, even though it might be similar, I think we might have to really, maybe at another meeting, because this one's, you know, we've pretty topped off at this point, but might have to really look at this a little bit closer, even though it's similar, because I can just tell you from the trying to deal with the deal of the one up on Sunset Lake Road, there is a lot of wiggle room in this ordinance that probably needs to be a little bit better,
Tighter.
defined. Thank you, Zeke. Thank you. Yes. It basically, after I have done one dog complaint, I can see where we need a little bit better ordinance here.
Right. Having done it for 10 years, I can tell you that some of the gray areas make it very difficult to work with residents who are not compliant with or wanting to be good neighbors. So, so this would be something we should continue to look at and discuss and go from there. But thank you, David, for looking through that. And it will be good, good for our hearing that we're going to have on Friday, to have everyone familiar with the, at least our ordinance that we'll be working with on Friday. Moving on, our tax collector and town clerk would like to, because the taxes aren't ready to be sent out yet, they'd like us to set the due date for the next installment of property tax to September 3rd.
I'd like to move that we set the due date for the next tax due date to be September
3rd.
3rd.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Geraldine, would you get back to Charlotte and Lori and just let them know that we did that?
I will certainly do that.
Great. Okay. We've had our reappraisal, and then if you would like to do the honors, Geraldine, for the next item.
I would make a motion to recess as the select board and convene as the liquor control board.
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so there's a liquor license catering request from Wyndham Wines for September 19th, 2020 at the Scott Farm. What would you like to do?
I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor catering license request from Wyndham Wines for September 19th at the Scott Farm.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Who seconded that?
I did. Carrie.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Geraldine, want to take
I'd like to make a motion to disband as the liquor control board and reconvene as the select board.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any other new business to come before this august board this evening? Well, with 7% left. I mean, we could go another 20 minutes as far as I'm concerned.
I will say I will sign the paperwork and ship it over to Lori for the liquor control thing for you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to get in touch with Charlotte for the health insurance. And let's see, everybody else has their job.
I will let the speeding on the Hill Road and get back to you, David, on that. And also, I'll let Lori know about the trash bags and talk to Lee in the morning.
And David, could you get back to the resident that asked for
The Middle Road residents, I'll get back to them to tell them that we're taking the action that we're taking, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Geraldine, you're going to get in touch with Charlotte and Lori.
I will do that. Yep.
That's right.
We
Great.
all have our marching orders.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. And Maria, I'm sure will get the minutes to us in a very timely way and with great accuracy. And so, yep, everybody has something to do. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
All right.